Hi, my name is Baba Sharana, and we're going to be talking about football. This is my new show, Weekly Football Review, and I'm going to start off by talking about Bundesliga. To be honest, it's more of Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen, right? Um, but Bayern Munich are playing amazing football. I'm a massive fan of Harry Kane, him being British, and him being probably England's best goal scoring threat. He's made an amazing transition into the Bundesliga. I didn't think that it would be this good. I thought he would transition well. He does play football in his light years ahead of a lot of players, but look, I didn't think the transition would be that easy. Thomas Tuchel is doing an amazing job. Um, but the formation that he plays, I think it's helping him because Leroy Sané and whether it be Serge Gnabry, Kingsley Coleman, Jamal Musiala, Muller, they all add to his game because Harry Kane, for being an amazing striker, is kind of the personification of how Barca kind of play their football. Not in the essence of the dribbling but the essence of he plays kind of a false nine role. He's an amazing striker, don't get me wrong, but he kind of plays that false nine role. He's actually letting Gnabry run into those spaces. He's letting Leroy Sané run into those spaces. He's kind of making them into kind of strikers because he plays a back foot role. And he's kind of helping out Jamal Musiala for that reason because Jamal Musiala actually comes up and runs, so he actually stands behind him. His transition to that team is amazing. Matthias Dell looks an interesting player for the future for Bayern Munich. Well, Kimmich, Leroy Goretzka, well, they're good. Kim has just been a heaven sent for them in the defense. Upamecano was starting to give away bad. He's starting to make bad decisions, to be honest. But Upamecano might get a transfer next season to some other team. Um, I'm interested to see how and when Manuel Neuer comes back into this team. Because, look, being very honest, this team kind of plays that style of football where Manuel Neuer, if he comes back to what he was at 90%, this Bayern team might actually win the Champions League this season. So that's an interesting point. Bayer Leverkusen has been their biggest threat. Xabi Alonso, heaven sent, I guess. He was anointed by everyone. He was going to be the next big manager. He's starting to show that aspect of his football. He understands football really well, and that was always evident in his game. He, but his understanding of players and how he wants to run the club is amazing. And do Bayer Leverkusen trump Bayern Munich this season? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting title race this season. I think Dortmund don't look like the team they're going to challenge for the title. Although the last year they should have kind of won it, but they just messed it up. Um, it's an interesting title race. Look, based on the record, I would still go Bayern Munich to win. Right? It's just simple because how dominant Bayern Munich have been. Union Berlin look good, but again, Bayern Munich to win the Bundesliga title. Xabi Alonso, if he stays another year, I think that will be more of an interesting title race because he might be able to add squad depth. They might have a good run in the Champions League, whereas they might get a lot more money. They might be able to buy more players. Hence, it might be an interesting title race. So, coming from that to Champions League, Champions League, it's an interesting season. That's right. So I've seen a few games. I've not seen all of them, I'm being honest. But my top three contenders this season, as far as I can see right now, are Man City, Bayern Munich, and Barcelona, and PSG. Barcelona probably being the weakest of contenders because they look like a good team, but they still need to be really tested, right? Whereas PSG are the third weakest team in that category because what PSG actually represent, it's what Kylian Mbappe actually always thought about, right? Kylian Mbappe never wanted to play striker. He always wanted to play left wing. But PSG, since they had Neymar and Messi, and they always had some other player, Di Maria, they always ended up playing him on the striker role. And since Neymar was always there, he didn't get to play in the left wing position. Now he's playing on that position. His influence is more on the game. He might not be scoring the same way, he might not be doing the same things, but his influence is greater on the game. He's more of a threat. Because look, Mbappe is not going to do the defensive work for you. But what Mbappe gives you is a light speed counter threat. And that light speed counter attack is something that all teams are afraid of. Where it be high pressing teams like Man City or Barcelona, that guy is a threat to them. Now, if whereas on the other hand, you look at their signings, right? The most interesting signing they made was Gonzalo Ramos at the end. I think that's a at least at this point it's like a 7.5 out of 10 signing, right? It's an amazing signing. Uh, Roman Kolo is also an interesting signing. Also is Dembele. Now, Dembele and Mbappe can swap positions. That is a massive threat because teams are not able to keep track of them. Dortmund were just dumbfounded by them in the Champions League. And um, what the other problem is Ashraf Hakimi. He's starting to become the player that we all expected. He's kind of right now at this moment the best right back in the world. I would say the better argument for him was be João Cancelo, but João Cancelo is playing an amazing type of football with Barcelona. João Cancelo is probably the better defender, whereas Ashraf Hakimi is the better attacker. And Ashraf Hakimi is starting to play right mid as well because that's what he did in this weekend game against Marseille. He has scored his goal against Dortmund was kind of uh, A-rated striker, A-class striker, top class striker would score. His movement was amazing. He just broke through the defense. He played through two or three defenders, and that was undeniable at that point. Um, Even Mbappe looked a little shocked at that point. He scored an amazing free kick on the weekend. Um, it's an interesting team, but now coming back to the strikers, Gonzalo Ramos and Roman Colonawani are adding a threat that PSG kind of needed. PSG look weak defensively. They're not the best defensive team. Marquinhos being the best defender, but they have an amazing goalkeeper in Donnarumma, which might actually save them a lot of times. But the striking part, Kulunawani and Ramos can almost play in every game together. And hear me out, this is the most weird part of PSG's attack now. They can play two strikers, and two strikers in a Champions League game is probably the best way because that is what you need. Champions League football is difficult because you need light speed counterattacks. Real Madrid won it 2 years ago because they had a light speed counterattack with Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo. Kulu Nwani actually plays as a false nine sort of position. He likes to run past defenders. He likes to. Whereas Gonzalo Ramos holds the line. Now that is a very interesting proposition. As you saw in the weekend game, Kulunawani actually was able to play a winger position when Mbappe was not there, and it was an effective move for the PSG. Now, the most important and probably the most integral part of that cog is Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique has an amazing record as a manager. People forget how good Luis Enrique is. He did an amazing job with Barca. It was the most interesting team that he had. He had the MSN attack, Messi, Luis Suarez, and Neymar. And that's why people thought Neymar would stay because Luis Enrique is there. But Luis Enrique understands football very differently. Although he's from the La Masia Academy, he's different. He's a more defensive minded coach than most people think. And you're kind of seeing that because in the last two games, PSG is starting to get the defensive part right. They don't have the best defenders, but I don't think you always need the best defenders. I think you need the right mentality to defend. And if the willingness to defend is the most important thing. Luis Enrique is a strict disciplinarian, for lack of a better word. He understands what the team needs to do. He understands how the team needs to position itself. He will let them position themselves. But what it might add is he might give the freedom to Mbappe for him to have an impact. So that's why Mbappe is probably the biggest threat. I've talked about Bayern Munich, why they're a threat. They have a brilliant understanding of the game. Thomas Tuchel is a great manager. Coming to Man City. Look, Man City are playing football with a kind of confidence that very few teams have. They go a goal behind, they are not able to score in a half. They just know they're kind of inevitable. They're kind of becoming like Thanos, right? They're kind of inevitable. Man City play football with the kind of swagger and confidence that I only have seen very few teams do it. And I think they've gotten over the hump of the Champions League, so they know they can do it again. And this is a weird statement to make. Haaland has scored 8 goals in the Premier League, but I see Haaland kind of being out of form. And that's a stupid statement, right? Haaland, look, he's missing more chances this season. People are starting to get to him. That's what Premier League does to you, by the way. They will start to attack your body. They'll start to attack your feet. You might have to create new ways. And Haaland doesn't have that many ways of to score a goal, and it's a stupid way. It's like it's a weird thing to say, right? But Haaland plays football differently. Haaland. So if you saw the weekend game, Haaland was defending, but he's not a good defender. He's not versatile. He's kind of robotic, and that is helpful for him because he does all the things that he does brilliantly, but he also kind of is not able to convert his game to any other position. Coming from that to Julian Alvarez. Julian Alvarez and Phil Foden are the most interesting dynamic in this Man City team. Foden last season, as you saw, he wanted to play and he's had an argument with Pep about it. Julian Alvarez is starting to become a player that if Erling Haaland wants to leave, he can easily replace him. Julian Alvarez is as good as anyone now in world football. And it's maybe too early to say it, but I think he's starting to become that player. He's starting to get that confidence from Pep. He's starting to get that trust from the team. And playing him with Haaland is probably the most interesting dynamic there because Haaland likes to run, he likes to hold up the defense like Gonzalo Ramos, but Haaland is better than Gonzalo Ramos. And Julian Alvarez is better than Roman Kululani. That is an interesting dynamic. Now, the signing of Jeremy Doku is even more interesting because I think what Man City lacked last year was pace in moments where they could counter teams. Jeremy Doku adds that. Haaland is quick, but Jeremy Doku is quicker. And Jeremy Doku's ball control is amazing. That is an interesting team this year for Man City. I don't need to talk about anyone else because Man City are doing brilliantly. Coming to Premier League football from this, look, Liverpool, they need to stop conceding goals. They have defensive frailties. I think they need to face a big challenge so they can know where the defense is. Alisson is playing well. That is a great sign for Liverpool. Them not selling Mo Salah was an interesting choice. But Darwin Núñez is starting to pick up. He's still. Look, if I was Darwin Núñez coach, I would tell him, just calm down, bro. Just calm down. You need to calm down and let the game come to you rather than taking the game on. It's a weird statement to make, but if you slow down the game just a little bit, I think Darwin Núñez could be an easy 40 goals a season striker, maybe even more. He could turn out to be the best player in the Premier League. That's how good Darwin Núñez is. Mo Salah is kind of, look, starting to decline is the wrong word, but obviously he's at the peak of his career, so there's only a downward curve for him. Luis Diaz and Diego Jota are probably some of the best players to have because they don't complain. That's what the most interesting part of this Liverpool team is. As long as Jota and Luis Diaz don't complain, it's fine. They're brilliant at it. And that's how Liverpool can actually win titles this season. I think as far as I've seen, I think Liverpool are the biggest threat to Man City in the Premier League. But I think Liverpool might also win the Europa League. I think they are the best team in the Europa League at this moment. Although Sevilla always comes up. Coming to from Liverpool to Arsenal and Tottenham, they look amazing. But I think they look 3 and 4 in this Premier League. Arsenal should be a title contender, but they're not at this moment. Weirdly enough, Man City have just moved ahead of them even further from last season. Although Arsenal are the younger team, but Man City are doing a brilliant job. Arsenal, I see them finishing third, but that's a good thing for them. I think Arsenal can do well in the Champions League. Bukayo Saka is not only going to be in contention for the Premier League player of the season in the next year or two, fingers crossed injuries stay away. I think Bukayo Saka might be the best player in the Premier League in a year or two. He is starting to show up. He is young, he's talented, he's willing, and Arteta is an amazing manager. So Bukayo Saka is the one to look out for the future. I think as an English fan, I hope that he performs in the World Cup and we win the World Cup. I think he might be the best player on that position in the world in a year or two. The only guy is better than him at this moment. There are two actually, and there are a guy called Lionel Messi and Mo Salah. So you're in a good enough class right now. I think you can take a year or two. From that, we move on to Ligue 1. And honestly, I just have to discuss the PSG Marseille game. It was an interesting game. Selena Gomez showed up, by the way. It was a very interesting moment because the cameras couldn't stay away from her. But, and to be fair, Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele kept looking at her at the start of the game. But PSG look like the player team that are going to win the Ligue 1 title. I don't think there should be a doubt. PSG have the most interesting attack in Ligue 1. They have the second most interesting attack in world football as a club, I think. Probably the only players that are more interesting at this point are Man City. But PSG are starting to play football the way they should. Mbappe getting injured might be a devastating blow, but also that might help the team come together. From that, we move on to La Liga. Real Madrid, like Craig Bailey said, got what they deserved. I don't agree with that, but Real Madrid do have a problem. With no Winnie Jr., with no strikers, it's a weird team at this moment. Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, only one of them can play. I agree with that part. Um, because I think the rest of the team has to carry them. Um, Whereas Jude Bellingham is doing well, but they don't look like a big time team. They are looking like a team that wins, but they don't because they have an interesting manager and they have Don Carlo, has an immense amount of experience. Right, he knows how to play the game. But Real Madrid look like a team that might get through to the quarterfinal of the Champions League, but actually go out. They will buy a striker next year. And knowing Real Madrid, he'll be some big name signing. They might actually end up going for Haaland at the end of the day because that might be their only choice. Or they might actually go for Julian Alvarez. That would be a better choice for them, I think. Atletico Madrid, what can I say? Cholo. Like, Diego Simeone, firstly, kudos to him. He's on the biggest contract any manager has in the world. But Diego Simeone is turning it up, and he always does. The Alvaro Morata and Antoine Griezmann partnership is probably one of the best duos in world football at this moment. And that is what is actually captivating the world because Alvaro Morata kind of was written off 2 years ago. And I could see that. Look, Alvaro Morata has not provided that sort of game, it's not that sort of entertainment that we actually expected out of him, but he's starting to perform this season. Griezmann, world class. He's the kind of guy you want in your team every day because he is the guy who's actually proven himself every single week for the last 7 or 8 years straight. He is hard work personified. He is. I don't have enough phrases for him, right? Griezmann is that good. And look, they were devastating against Real Madrid. Real Madrid fans want to say that if the chances didn't go to them, Atletico might not have won. But look, at the end of the day, they did what they had to. And I think they were the better team against Real Madrid. The last topic that I'm going to be talking about, Barcelona. Barcelona, firstly, the comeback. That sort of grid, that sort of menace that Lewandowski brought back into that Barcelona team, that has been missing for the last 8 to 9 years. Barcelona look a threatening team. They need to face a big challenge, but Robert Lewandowski actually was pulling them and he was looking like the leader of the group. That is what actually I needed to see from Barcelona this season. Lewandowski is starting to get into that team. They're starting to listen, and Lewandowski is starting to score. João Cancelo, an amazing goal at the end. An amazing assist, amazing goal. But the guy I actually want to talk about, and I think the guy, if he starts to play this sort of football on a consistent level, and more, starts to becoming that consistent, and this guy actually might become the Ballon d'Or winner this year. It's a stupid statement to make, but trust me, that guy is starting to play football the way that people expected him to. He's young. Him going to Atletico Madrid was probably a mistake because of how Cholo plays, but I'm talking about João Felix. That guy can actually win the Ballon d'Or this year. And that is how good he is playing at this moment. He's starting to find the range. He's starting to find the passes. His partnership with Robert Lewandowski I think, is the best duo in the world. They are so good together. And he understands and he feeds off Lewandowski, whereas Lewandowski also feeds off him. He understands his runs. They're both playing just brilliant football. And that's the kind of football you want to watch week in and week out. That's the kind of partnership that you want to see. Gavi, Pedri, Oriol Romeo, João Cancelo, all these guys are brilliant. Xavi, I hope they make a brilliant run in the Champions League. The four I predicted, that's why they're four, and Barcelona is fourth at this moment. Barcelona, if they start to get their defense right, if they start to get motivated, Barcelona can move to easily the second team on this list. So for that reason, I think Barcelona is the most interesting team to watch in world football again. Um, but so are Bayern, PSG, and Man City. Man City have just a lot of confidence, right? But João Felix, I think, can win the Ballon d'Or. And it's a crazy statement, but trust me, he's playing like Zidane sort of prime Zidane sort of moves, the groove, the confidence that he has, the trust that he has in Lewandowski, and that's adding up. I think that is the most interesting call. Um, to be fair, my runners for Ballon d'Or are look, weirdly enough, I think his missing chances is not at the best, but I think that is a testament to him. Haaland, João Felix, Julian Alvarez. Um, to be fair, Kylian Mbappe, he'll always be there as long as he's not injured for long term. These are the guys I picked for the Ballon d'Or next year, and they're playing interesting football for that reason. So that's it, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Keep watching and comment on anything that I missed out on, and if you want me to talk about any other football game.